Welcome to My Spoonie Sisters, featuring stories from special guests dedicated to empowering those with chronic illness. Our goal? To connect people and provide the support and tools they need to live a better life. For those with chronic illness, our energy levels just fade faster. We must be more purposeful with the spoons allotted to us. So grab your coffee or tea, sister, and tune in as My Spoonie Sisters share stories of living with chronic illness.
Hi, my Spoonie sisters. I'm your host, Gracefully Jen, and I decided to bring back one of your favorites. Welcome, Amy. How are you today?
I'm good. Hello, everybody.
It's so good to have you back on. It's been not quite a year, but we're pushing it.
Almost. Yeah, we were getting ready to go on the road RVing the last time we talked.
Yeah, I think it was last March and you were getting ready to go. Do you want to kind of update us on life and things?
So that adventure failed miserably. We made it about a week. It was one of those things where everything that could go wrong did possibly go wrong. It was like I would wake up in the morning and be like, okay, like we've done everything that could possibly go wrong. And then something else would happen. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a possibility. So we sold the RV and are back to living in a typical house back in Iowa, back to life as it was before we got this crazy idea for an adventurous life.
So, is there anything that you do miss about the adventurous life? I mean, just obviously not the things that went wrong, but are there any things that you miss?
I think just the spontaneousness, like we were able to do things that you just can't get in a normal life, living that traditional working 9 to 5. It was just filled with so much adventure. And even in that week and a half that we were gone, we were able to see so many different places. So I do miss that. And I miss the small space that we had. A lot of people think it's crazy to want to live in an RV because they are so small. But one of the things that we realized was ours was actually too big for us, which is a crazy concept that we were like 27 feet. So like 200 square feet, maybe. So super, super, super small, but it was still too big for what you want on the road.
So, you went to Colorado. Did you have many stops along the way?
So we actually started in Wyoming, like an hour into Wyoming, and we spent like 4 days there. It was miserable. It was like freezing. Winds were like 70 to 80 miles an hour gust. Like the whole camper just shook. We left there and went to Fort Collins, where the weather was gorgeous in Colorado until the day that we were set to leave. They had a record-setting snowstorm. I think they ended up getting like 25 or 30 inches of snow after we had left. So we left at a perfect time. But yeah, it was interesting to say the least.
Wow, that's intense. So, okay. Did you go on any fun hikes? What kind of stuff did you do when things were not going crazy?
So we did. I mean, hiking is our thing. Hiking is where we feel most at peace and most just in awe of the world. So we were very intentional of like, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to enjoy that. And that was really all that we took advantage of in that week and a half. We had taken other stuff with us, like a kayak and bikes, and just didn't stay on the road long enough to give those a shot.
But it's not like you can't still adventure out when you want to. And yeah, and that's going to be great. I still, selfishly hope you make it out this direction someday.
We will. Well, like it's definitely on our list. Neither of us have been there, and like the pictures that you post, I'm like, but I want that to be my backyard if my family wasn't 400 bajillion miles away.
Yeah, I think that would be the most difficult thing. I did not do a huge move or a travel like you did. I guess it was huge to me when I was 19 years old. I decided to pick up and just move. It was insane. I had a friend that lived in northern Idaho, which was a good 10-hour drive from where I grew up in southern Idaho. And I thought, let's try something new. And I packed up all of what I wanted to take into Rubbermaid storage containers, put them in my truck, and moved in February, which is the worst time of year to move in the state of Idaho. What was I thinking? I don't even know. And I look back and I talk to my parents and they're like, well, we really wanted to talk you out of this, but well, you were 19. We couldn't stop you. And your brothers eventually moved out and did things. And it was so scary. I mean, I did have my boyfriend with me, but it was terrifying. And I remember at one point being somewhere up in the middle of the mountains and it's snowing and there's snow just piled high on every side of me and driving slow, feeling so nervous. And I grew up in snow, but this just was something new. And I remember looking at him, do you want to drive for me? Nope. This is your truck. You're driving. Okay. All right. Maybe you're trying to teach me a lesson.
Right.
It was awful. And living that far away from my family, that was interesting. And granted, I live that far away from my family now.
Right.
But I've been used to it. I've been away since I was 19.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like, I also, when I was 18, thought it was a good idea to move 12 hours from my entire family for a boy. My parents definitely tried to talk me out of it. I think hoping that we would break up. But that was plenty of years ago, and we are now happily married. So it was clearly a good decision. Just looking back, I'm like, yeah, I can see why they tried to talk me out of that.
Yeah. I mean, mine was for a boy also, and that was the boyfriend. He flew down to go with me. I had met him from the friend when I would go up to visit her.
Yep.
And we fell in love and did the whole long distance thing. And of course, that was back when you had to email and
right.
Because people had cell phones, but not very often. And if you did, you had to pay for minutes and it was ridiculous.
Right. And they were for emergencies only.
And if you went over your minutes, ooh, that bill.
Ugh. Yes.
Ugh. I try to explain it to my kids. I don't know if they're ever going to fully understand. Like, it was horrible expensive. Yeah. Okay. So how was your anxiety during all of that?
Luckily, I think I've gotten to a point where I know at least when it's going to be set off. So I knew that this was going to be a stressful situation to begin with. Like, we were leaving the comfort of a house. Like, we had sold our house. This was now our house. We were living on wheels. So I knew it was going to be stressful. And it was something that I had really discussed with my therapist before we did it. And, she explained, we don't have kids. So like, we don't have those roots tying us to one place. And this really is the perfect time to adventure. We're both young enough that we can enjoy those things of hiking and mountain biking and exploring and not struggle getting around. So I knew it was going to be stressful, but I also had those things in place. I have my anxiety meds that I take every single day. I think the last time we had talked, I was maybe thinking about getting off of them with doctor's approval. And I did that for a couple of months. I was like, I just don't feel as good as I feel when I'm on them. And thankfully, I have that support system in the medical field, which I know can be very uncommon, that she was willing to be like, okay, you tried it, like, get back on the meds. Like, there's no crazy side effects. If you feel better, just do it. So I had that, and having my husband go to therapy with me and realizing how severe my anxiety actually was, I think was one of the best things that we could have done for our relationship, because from an outside perspective, he just didn't understand. If it's not something you experience, you just don't understand. You can't understand. And from someone who suffers from anxiety, I just thought everyone felt this way. So to me, it was crazy that the thoughts I had weren't the thoughts that he has. So having him as my support system as well was also huge. And then I have just made so many small habits that do help my anxiety on a daily basis. And so making sure I stuck with those, even when our routine was going to be way different than it typically is, having that toolbox filled with what I do to help my anxiety definitely helped the situation.
So what kind of habits do you have in place that you would recommend someone try if they're struggling and still don't feel like they have something that's working for them?
So I swear by, I read The Miracle Morning, which is an amazing book. I had to read it like 6 times before it actually like stuck, and I continued to do all of the things. But he talks about lifesavers, and they're just kind of habits that he does every single morning. So I've tweaked mine a little bit, but every single morning I make sure that I'm doing these things. So I read affirmations every morning, and I have a gratitude journal, because it's so much easier to be happy and find joy when you really are appreciating those things that we overlook so often. I read every morning of some sort of personal development book, just kind of to gain more knowledge on things. A lot of times I'll read anxiety books just because I am curious to know the science behind why my brain works like it does. I journal every morning, which I feel like is a really, really great tool. I know some people get overwhelmed by it sometimes, but I've heard of like, you just journal a sentence a day. Like, don't make it anything that's crazy. Don't make it anything that like feels intimidating. Just do what works for you. And then the thing that probably helps the most is meditation. And it is super hard to sit. I do use the Calm app, which really helps since it is guided, but it still is very, very difficult to sit and try not to think for 10 minutes. After I'm done with that, I will go do some sort of physical activity. So that has been another really, really huge tool in my toolbox, is making sure that I am moving my body, because there is such a correlation between our mental health and using physical activity to help heal those parts.
Calling all spoonies. As a host of a chronic illness podcast, nothing lights up my day more than hearing from you, our incredible listeners. Whether it's a topic close to your heart that you want us to uncover, or you are keen to show your own journey as a guest on our show, your voice matters. Living with chronic illness can often feel isolating, but through the power of podcasting, we can come together as a community to uplift, educate, and inspire one another. Your stories, insights, and questions drive the conversations we have and the topics we explore. So if there's something on your mind, a story that you are just itching to share, or a guest you'd love to hear from, don't hesitate to reach out. Your voice is not only welcomed here, but celebrated. Let's continue to amplify the voices of those living with chronic illnesses and create a space where everyone feels heard, supported, and empowered. Together, we are stronger.
Well, and I think meditation is a really good point that you're bringing up. So I had a really bad panic attack yesterday. And okay, maybe it wasn't a bad one. It was bad.
All of them are bad.
I mean, yeah, they're all bad.
Yeah.
And they all have different levels, right? So yesterday's, I think the reason why I'm calling it bad is because it felt like it was all day, and it just wouldn't go away. And I feel like it was part of the aftermath of a migraine I had the day before and wanting it to just go away, and my gut's upset now from the migraine. And I have all these things on a list that I want to get done, and it brings my anxiety out. And so I just had meditation music playing on my Alexa all day long, all day long. And I'll tell you, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but both my daughter and my son have anxiety also. And my son is very adamant that he absolutely does not want to have to try any sort of medications to help him. My daughter, on the other hand, she's more like me. Hey, I don't want to feel like this. If this is what's going to help and this is what I need, I'm going to do that. Well, my son, his panic attacks, I feel like he almost brings them on. And I'm always trying to explain to him that he's in a safe place and that he needs to remind himself he's being paranoid. And it could be something as simple as we eat dinner. He's paranoid that there might have been a piece of pineapple in the dinner, and now he's convinced he's going to have an allergic reaction. And next thing you know, it's a full-blown panic attack because he's absolutely convinced he's allergic to pineapple. And bless his heart, you just want to hug him and you want to shake him and you want to be like, okay, let's bring you back to reality. And I'm always trying to be super patient because yes, I have attacks too. I understand what they feel like, but I also want to be like, sweetheart, you kind of bring these onto yourself quite often. and I mean, that doesn't make them any better or any worse, right? It doesn't matter if we bring them on ourselves or if they come out of nowhere, but I just want to shake him. And so he spent most of the weekend visiting us, feeling like crap.
And I can completely relate because that was me. In 2018, when I was actually diagnosed with anxiety, my therapist was like, I think you need to go see like your medical professional. You need to get on medication. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I will not. I will do this holistically because I do believe that a lot of it can be handled holistically. And so I tried for a good year to handle it holistically as best as I could. And then I went to the doctor and my blood pressure was like off the chart. Like the doctor was like, you can either go to the emergency room right now or you can schedule an appointment with your regular doctor, but you need to do something because it was like 170 over like 110. And she's like, you will have a stroke if you continue to do this. And as soon as the general doctor walked in, he was like, it's not high blood pressure. Like, you're healthy enough. You're at a good height, at a good weight. Like, he's like, do you suffer with anxiety? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, how often? And I was like, every day, all day. Like, that's just how it works. And he prescribed me medication at that time. And I remember being like, okay, like, fine, whatever. And this just stopped listening because I just couldn't bring myself to accept, like, to me, it had felt like a failure. Like somehow I failed myself by needing the medication. And when I explained this to the therapist was like, no, like, let's look at it a different way. Like, if you had a medical illness like diabetes, you're going to take the insulin. Like, it's the same thing. She's like, your brain needs to heal and you need that medication to heal it. And I think that was really the eye opener, that I was like, oh, like, one, it doesn't have to be forever. Like, it might be forever. I might be on anxiety medication forever. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm very okay with that. But it also might not be. Like, I might learn enough tools and skills to manage my anxiety that I don't need that medication.
Well, and I think there is a level of mindset that comes into play to help us. But like you said, there are times where we just have to realize that we've done everything we can on our side and holistically, and now it's time that we do need that assistance, and that's okay. There's no shame in that. And that's what I keep trying to explain to my son is, if you need to go to the next step, that's okay. There's no shame in that. And I feel like I'm always trying to talk him down off a ledge. And I don't mean like a dangerous ledge. I just mean
Yes.
the ledge of like, I'm dying. Because every time he has one, he's convinced that he's about to stroke out. And he'll be like, my face feels weird. My arms feel weird. And I'm like, because you're being paranoid and you're hyping yourself up and you're making your panic attack worse.
Right.
The more that you are being in tune with how your body's feeling and you're making these thoughts of all these weird feelings and stuff, you're making it worse. And I said, honey, I'm not saying this to pick on you. I'm saying this because I've done it.
Right. I've been there. I know. And like, that is one thing. Like, I don't struggle a lot with panic attacks. But I had what I thought was a panic attack, a couple of years ago, when I was like, oh, like, that was uncomfortable. I don't want to experience that again. And then probably about a year ago, my husband was having some complications with his ileostomy, and the panic attacks set in, and it was like I wasn't even in my body. Like, it was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. Like, it was like I was outside my body, just like watching it fall apart. And I think that was the point where I was like, okay, like, I need to continue to have this managed so that I don't have to feel that way again.
So what were your symptoms like? I'm curious, just so listeners can hear, but also curious to see if it's anything like what I go through.
So it was in the middle of the night, and he started getting sick because he had a blockage. And I've always really struggled with people vomiting. I don't know why. Like, I could handle a lot of gross things, but vomiting like just flips a switch in me. And I remember walking in, asking him if he needed anything, and he was like, no, I'm fine. And I was like, okay. And then everything in the room just started like spinning. And I was like, this is very strange. And so I walked to like the doorway and just kind of held myself up, because I knew that if I wasn't holding myself up, like, I was going to fall over. And so it was just like the constant spinning, and then like super like high pitched like squeal in my ears, and like everything was blurry and dizzy. And I mean, it didn't last that long. It probably only lasted a couple of minutes, but at the time it felt like it was forever. And like, that was the worst time, where like other times I felt like I can't breathe and I'm struggling. And so then I learned like, oh, just go outside quick, like move your body to a different spot and try to focus on, like, I think they call it like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you like can focus on things, using your senses to focus on things that you see and hear and taste and feel. And really trying to focus on that and like putting myself back in the moment.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes that's really all we can do, right? And if we give in to what is going on, oh my gosh, it just makes it so much worse. And I'll tell you, okay, so I'll give you an example of my last really bad one. It was the weekend of my son's 21st birthday. And we decided to go to a place called Leavenworth here in Washington. And it is a fun place to go. Picture like I'm going to butcher this, but like a fun German themed town.
Yeah.
I think the Steins with the beer. I mean, every shop, everything, it's all Bavarian. That's the word, Bavarian. Adorable place. So we had been planning this as a family for a long time. And it was my husband's sister and her family. And then, of course, us and our kids. My grandson was just born. We rented an Airbnb, a huge one to fit all of us. So excited for this trip. I get up in the morning. I decide to curl my hair, put on makeup, and I'm like, ooh, we're going to have so much fun. I'm so excited. I'm going to go taste some ciders and all the things. We get in the car, and a lot of times I will let one of my kids sit up front with my husband because I, for some reason, do better in the backseat on a road trip.
Which is not typical. Like I very much like will get car sick if I'm not in the front seat.
Yeah, I need to sit in the back because I'll have like anxiety and like I feel like everyone's gonna hit us and so I want to sit in the back. And so I was sitting in the back and I had like earbuds in and I'm trying to listen to a podcast and relax. And next thing I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so hot. I'm so hot, and it's summer, but we're in the car with air conditioning on. And I was like, hey, do you guys have the air conditioning on very well? I cannot feel it back here. And I was like, I'm dying. And so then I'm like, okay, water bottle. I'm going to have a drink. And then I'm still hot. So I start stripping off some of my layers because it is like the most absolute disgusting sweat of your life. It feels like it smells weird. It comes on weird. It won't stop. It's ugh. And here I am just melting. My makeup felt like it was melting down my face. It was awful. I was a hot mess and I thought I was going to puke or have diarrhea or something or all of it.
All
and
of
it
the
was
above.
yes. And of course, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no rest stop nearby. And finally, I'm like, honey, I'm not feeling good. I need you to stop. And he's like, are you freaking kidding me again? Because I'm kind of notorious for having panic attacks in the car. So literally, he pulls off the side of the road. I run into the weeds to go throw up. This is horrifying. I ran into giant cobwebs.
Oh no.
Many large spiders. Many. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is making this so much worse. It was horrifying. I can't even explain how. I mean, I don't like spiders. So I'm looking around and I wanted to scream, cry. Yeah, I sat there and proceeded to vomit a couple of times and then had to go to the bathroom on top of all that. And then I'm like trying to shake everything off. And he's yelling out the window, are you going to be okay? We're going to be late. And I'm like, late for what? You just want to be the first one to the Airbnb. And so I finish and I get in the car and my son, you could just kind of start to see the color in his face is starting to change because seeing other people like that starts to set him off. So it's like, oh, great. So I'm like, okay, I feel a little better. Drink some more water and pop in some ginger chews, just something to kind of focus on, trying to play some music. 30 minutes later, all over again. Worst road trip of my life. It was a 4-hour drive of that.
Yeah, that is horrible. And like, do you know what sets them off or like what causes it?
So sometimes I do. For some reason, road trips trigger me big time. I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter how excited I am to go. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how close it is. It could be an hour, 2 hours away. We get in the car and within 30 minutes, my stomach hurts and I need a bathroom immediately. Every time. It's horrible and it's embarrassing. And so now it's gotten to the point where like I have to have my emergency backup, my tranquilizers to take with me to basically sedate myself sometimes just to make it through a road trip, which is horrible and embarrassing. So, yeah.
But you also know what you need to do
Mm-hmm.
to make
Yeah.
it work for you.
Oh, yeah. And I think sometimes I offend my husband because he's like, oh, good talk, hun. Because he's trying to talk to me while we're in the car. And I'm looking down at my phone, either playing a game or texting someone, listening to music, listening to a podcast. I'll design graphics and I'll do it for like hours just to get me through the drive. And I usually take a Sprite with me, something about having a Sprite to sip on, having my ginger chews to suck on, all those kind of things seem to like help.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, press your face to the window. The window feels nice and cool.
It's a nice and cool.
What do I see? Because, you know, you are drinking the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so I'm like, okay, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I feel? You are okay. You're in the car with your husband. You are not going to die. You are fine. But my body never seems to think so. Ever.
Yeah. And I think that's like the crazy thing with like anxiety and depression is like, yes, sometimes you know what causes it. And then there's other times where you're like, I just feel off. Like, I don't have an explanation for you. I can't explain how I feel. I just feel off.
I'm not myself today.
Right.
I feel a slight paranoia, maybe not all the way. Don't really want to leave my house. Can't explain why.
Yeah.
But it's easier to stay home and just kind of let our bodies recoup.
Yes.
And that's okay. I think we're entitled to paying attention to our bodies. And if we need to stay home, stay home.
I would agree. And I think that is one of the things that, like, I'm very much an introvert, and like being around people is sometimes very overwhelming. But I'm like, I will always talk about mental health. Like, that is something that I feel like so many people struggle with, but yet we all struggle with it in silence because unfortunately there is still that stigma around like, oh, well, if you do have a mental illness, like something is wrong with you or somehow you're less. And I think what I've learned, especially after being diagnosed with general anxiety and PTSD, is like, there is nothing wrong with me. Like, it is part of who I am, but it makes me so much stronger, and it has taught me so much about myself and just life in general that, like, sure, I wish I didn't have it, but unfortunately that's not the cards that I was dealt, and it's now up to me to figure out how to manage it and how to move on with life.
Well, and I think it makes you more in tune to others and more compassionate, which I look back on everything, and no matter what, I wouldn't change my life because it's made me who I am. And it's helped me to find people like you and open my circle a little wider and know that I'm not alone in it. And it's great when we know we're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like, as I begin to, I mean, within the last couple of years, I've really started, talking about my mental health and my struggles, and the amount of like messages that I received just being like, oh, like that post meant so much to me, or like, hey, I struggle with that as well, and didn't have anyone to talk to. Like, opening those conversations of like, you seriously are never alone. Like, you might feel like it, but you're not. Like, there is, I mean, and I think that's what I love so much about the Spoonie group is like, we all do have so different walks of life and so many different struggles, but at the end of the day, it's all the same. Like, everyone has something that they are struggling with, and they need to know, like, hey, you aren't alone in this, and like you have this support system here to help you through it.
100%. And there's, oh gosh, there's like 20 people we can message in a heartbeat and say, hey, I'm a hot mess. I'm struggling today. Can you just listen to me for a minute? Can we talk? Or boom, I log in and Amy just posted the right thing I needed to hear today. And I can write you and say, Amy, you have no idea how much I needed that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But here's some irony, and I want to know what you think on this. Do you ever feel like when people are thanking you for a post that you're like, I actually posted this just as much or more for me. I needed this today, but I'm so glad it helped you.
All the time. Literally all the time. Like, so I run a lot for my mental health, and there is an organization that I am an ambassador with this year, which is stillirun, and they really focus on mental health and running and how they work together. And so in hopes to like increase my run times or my speed or whatever, or just surround myself with more runners, I joined a challenge. And yesterday, the challenge was to run for 10 minutes and then share your distance. And I'm like scrolling through social media and looking at all the times, and people are going like a mile and a half. And I'm like, you're running like 5-minute miles, and I'm like 12 to 13-minute miles. Like, I'm not even going to get a mile complete in that 10 minutes. And like immediately I was like, I don't want to post my time. Like, I don't want to share it. I shouldn't have joined this, because one of the big things that I struggle with anxiety is that low self-esteem and that self-doubt. And so it was like immediately like, why did I do this? And thankfully I like reached out to some people in the group, and they were like, that's not the point of this. Like, the point of this is you versus you. And I think that just correlates to life as well, right? Like, it's so easy, especially on social media, where it is highlights of our lives, to play that comparison game of, well, they're so much better, or they're so much more successful, or they get so much more likes. When it's like, okay, great, but you might be comparing your middle to their end, where they've been doing this for years, or you're beginning to their middle. Like, we just have to stop the comparison game. And like, the interesting thing was then the like creator of the challenge like reached out and was like, it's funny you should post that, because they were like, it goes the other way too. And sometimes people think like, oh, I don't want to post my time because it's too fast, and what if people think I'm breaking, or what if people think, and I was like, like, that didn't even click in my head. So that was very eye-opening of like, it works on both ends of the spectrum, and it really does need to be just us versus us, me versus me.
100%. And I was so thankful when I saw your post, because I think it resonates with so many people. We need to recognize that it's not us versus the world. You know, sometimes you guys might see me on my best day. Every time people reach out to me and they're like, oh, you look so gorgeous today, I'm like, see me on the other 6 days of the week.
Right. Or even the other, like, I got ready for 5 minutes this one day and then went and put my pajamas back on. Like,
yeah, exactly. You have no idea. I mean, I could look okay right here, right now. Well, they can't see what I'm showing you, but I'm showing you my face. So I put some effort in. I put some makeup on today. But I didn't curl my hair. Most people are used to seeing my hair always curled, but no, I don't always look like that. Sometimes this is me, and that's the best you're going to get. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
that is how you get me most of the time. Like, most of the time you're going to see me, I'm in sweats and probably haven't washed my hair in a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm still trying to get my husband to understand I don't need to wash my hair every day. That's actually not healthy for my hair.
Yes.
But that's
It is a
kind of
weird
hard too.
concept. They have a hard time understanding.
They don't. I need those oils and I need them to go down my hair to make my
Yeah.
ends feel good. And it's hard because like, okay, we're going to the gym, we're exercising, we're doing all the things. He's like, well, aren't you getting sweaty and gross? And I'm like, yes. And I will still shower my body and I will still wash my face. I may only rinse my hair, but I may not use actual shampoo. Or I'm going to use a heck of a lot of dry shampoo to get me through.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All the dry shampoo.
All of it. I think we need stock in it. Well, oh gosh, thank you for joining. I love our chats.
Yes, thank you for having me back. It was so nice to catch up. I feel like I think as we get older, we just are like, what happened to life? Like life just flies by. And it's so true. Like the fact that you were like, we haven't had one of these talks in almost a year. I'm like, it feels like it wasn't that long ago, but it was.
But life has been crazy. And
Yeah.
I mean, you went
And
to
it always is.
Yeah, you went to Colorado, we went to Hawaii. Geez, we had a big move.
Yes.
I mean, you had multiple big moves.
Well, at a certain point, you just get used to it and you just get really good at moving.
Oh, gosh. You know what? I don't want to do it again. But it was fun to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Yes. I feel like that is the best part.
That was definitely the best part. My house feels like it's the cleanest it's ever been. There's not a bunch of
Isn't it so peaceful?
I love it, but I still feel like I could get rid of more. I probably will. All right. Anything you want to share that we didn't talk about?
I mean, I think just reaffirming, like, if you are listening to this and you are struggling, like, know that there are so many people that are willing and want to be there to listen to you and help you through whatever struggle you may be going through.
Absolutely. And sometimes, we're going to help talk you down. Sometimes we're going to just listen, whatever you need, just let us know. And if you need some happy mail, hit us up.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. I love happy mail. Speaking of which, I'm getting yours mailed out today.
Yay.
I finally am mailing out the sticker I got for you at the ocean.
The stickers are the best.
They are the best. I think I bought it for you like a month ago, and I'm finally mailing it.
Life.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you. And until next time, don't forget your spoon.
The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. The information should not be taken as a replacement for medical, clinical, professional advice, diagnoses, or medical intervention. My Spoonie sisters and guests will not be held liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Trigger warning. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics including, but not limited to, suicide, abuse, mental illness, and chronic disease. You are advised to refrain from listening if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. None of the guests or hosts will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Life is not merely to be alive, but to be well. Living a life with a chronic illness is best described with one word: unpredictable. Be Well's products are designed to make the unpredictable easier to deal with. Back when I was getting my infusions, I would have loved to have their adult zip hoodie. They even have one in pink. They also have everything from one-day pill holders to urgency buckets. So remember, they want to make your life a little easier. So be sure to check out Be Well.